Hey, welcome to the Pleasure Points podcast. I'm your host, James Rohr. I'm excited to have you here today. Today is a big topic. So today we're going to be talking about illness and symptoms. In particular, kind of using symptoms as like a springboard to understand better what's going on in your body. So, it's hard to live a pleasurable life if you're sick. You guys have probably heard me say that before, and it's true. When you got symptoms, it's hard to feel good. So we got to get those symptoms to go away. We got to get you bring you back into balance and really get you to a place where you can start feeling good, especially if you've been in a place where you haven't really been hopeful, or you feel like you're at a dead end and you don't know where to go. What we talk about here, I think you might find very, very valuable. And then you can take that and we can start getting you back into a place where you can start enjoying life a little bit more, feeling some more pleasure, having some more insight. In any event, you'll have some ideas to kind of sit with, and maybe you'll run some new experiments this week too. Let me know how it goes. I hope you guys enjoy. Welcome to the show, and let's get started. Today, I want to talk to you we're going to talk a little bit about illness today. And I want to share with you some ideas that I've encountered when I was actively involved in getting my shit right, literally, when I was working on figuring out how to heal from inflammatory bowel disease, which is something that I lived with for a long time. And in that process of about 10 years or so of being very, very sick, I tried anything and everything. And there were some ideas that showed up that I thought about and have been sitting with and continue to sit with even after I've been healed and working with clients for the last 15 years or so. These are some of the things that I think about. And I think that when people are sick, when you're not feeling well, there's a lot of attention paid to just managing symptoms. And I get it. Like, if you are full of symptoms, like, shit is uncomfortable, right? Things do not feel good, and that sucks. So there's a lot of focus on just sort of hurrying up to feel better. But I want to take a little bit bigger look at it to examine, or to offer an idea anyway. I mean, what the fuck do I know? But let's offer an idea about something that may help you reframe your issue, give you some stuff to think about that may help you feel better, may help you heal. So the number one thing here that I want to talk about is that I believe that everything exists in your life, in my life, in everyone's life, because in some way, shape, or form, it serves us. So somehow it helps. Somehow this thing, the presence of whatever it is there because we need it to be there. It might be the exact form of resistance that the universe or God or the Creator has manifested in accordance with the energy that we're putting out to help us become who we need to become, to give us the situation that we need in order to see things more clearly, or to give us the burden to carry that is going to strengthen the exact physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual muscles that we might need in order to have the experience that we're meant to have here on this planet. So whatever it is that you might be dealing with, whether it's chronic headaches, migraines, inflammatory bowel disease, an ankle sprain that won't get any better, to your emotional life, anxiety, depression, could be fatigue. Maybe it's being single and you really want to be in a relationship. Maybe it's your shitty marriage. Maybe it's your boss that's really difficult. Maybe it's something with your siblings, right? Whatever it is, whatever this stuff is that's showing up in your life, I believe it's there because it needs to be there. So somehow it is giving us the message or the lesson that we need in order to become who we need to become. So one of the questions that I found myself asking and that I encourage some of my clients to consider about as well, which is, when this stuff is coming up for you, well, how is it serving you? How is it serving you? How are the symptoms? How is the diagnosis? How is the disease? How is the prognosis? How is your entire experience serving you? Now, this is like kind of intense, right? This is this is kind of an intense conversation, or it's an intense stance, because a lot of times it just feels like illness kind of pops up out of nowhere. I'm not saying that you asked for this stuff, right? It's not about victim blaming or shaming or any of that shit, right? This is just simply a question, a thought exercise, something to consider. How does your illness, how does the resistance that you're experiencing, how is it serving you? What are you getting from it? Maybe you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you were totally healthy. Maybe you would have never found the acupuncturist or chiropractor or naturopath if you were that way. Or maybe, it could serve you in a whole bunch of ways. So how does this resistance serve you? What is the lesson that you might be able to glean from it? Now, part of why I like this question and why I like this approach is because, like, what the fuck? If you are having a hard time and you're able to glean a silver lining from this, like, that's nice. That goes in the bucket of positivity that can help you to feel better, that can help you to heal. Maybe you haven't stacked any good or positive outcomes or positive experiences for yourself in a long, long time. So maybe if you can find how somehow this resistance, this difficulty, this frustration is serving you, this illness, this imbalance, if you might be able to find a way that it serves you, that it's helping you, that it's teaching you something, then let's put a little bit of positivity in that bucket. And hopefully pretty soon that bucket will be overflowing. But I think that a lot of illness tends to come from a spiritual place. I think that what happens for a lot of us, if not all of us, is that the communication begins to happen on a spiritual level, where your spirit, the creator, the universe, whatever, is trying to communicate with you. It's trying to get your attention. But in order for us to listen, that's like a commitment, right? That's like a lifestyle shift. Giving yourself that space, that meditation, the intuitiveness, the trust to, believe what it is that you're feeling, to give yourself the permission to believe it, the permission to act on it, the permission to behave and to make these transitions. And a lot of times it's just like we just miss it. So many distractions, so many things that are floating through our heads that we miss this kind of divine intervention, or this sort of knocking at the door of our spirit. And so when our spirit's not paying attention, or when we, are not listening to that communication, then what happens is, we might get even more sort of mental or emotional feelings. You get kind of queasy feelings, or you get uneasy feelings, or there's some other kind of impulse. Maybe you keep just sort of getting a feeling or a thought that's, you shouldn't do something, or this might happen, or like whatever. That stuff comes in. And that stuff can be a little bit easier to sometimes recognize, because we feel there's like more of a physical experience. But even that stuff can be easy to ignore, right? You're busy, you're watching Netflix, you're hanging out with your guy or your girl or like whatever. You're having those experiences, so it's easy to just be like, well, everything's fine, I don't need to pay attention. And so if your spirit is trying to get your attention, there is nothing that is like more effective than when your body starts to break down. There's nothing like, a migraine to stop you in your tracks. There's nothing like a busted knee to get you to sit down and quiet yourself. So I tend to think that a lot of things, by the time they manifest physically, the energy that is kind of wrapped up in that imbalance has been there for a while. Because there was a lesson, there was an adjustment, there was an opportunity for growth, there was an opportunity to listen to the universe, and we missed it. And so when the physical symptoms start happening, this is, I still very much believe, the spirit or the universe working with your body to get your attention so that you can transform. Sometimes those 3 or 4 days of fever are exactly what you need in order to shake off some stagnant energy. Maybe it kills some other toxic cells. We just don't know. Right? Cormac McCarthy, the author, has a phenomenal line that says something like, we never know what worse luck or bad luck saved us from. So, the bad luck of having a fever for 4 days may have kept you from getting into a car accident. Maybe you didn't get into a bike accident because you were laid up. And here, you were just sort of like bitching about being sick for a few days, when in actuality, that may have kept you alive. We just don't know. We don't know. And that's the part of the beauty of being alive, is that we don't know. But exploring some of these ideas helped me to move in a more conscious direction. So I wanted to, share some of this stuff with you guys, because maybe someone out there, it's gonna help. So one of the things that I recommend just kind of taking a look at is, what are some of the ways that your illness, that your symptoms may actually be helping you? So for instance, like, let's just say somebody is really introverted and they just really like to stay in. They feel refreshed when they stay in. But this person is also very sensitive and wants to be liked. So they are very sensitive to their friends and they want to make sure that they're liked. They're very concerned about their social status, their situation, all that. So for this person, if their friends always want to go out, rather than just being able to say, hey, like, I need to stay in and take care of myself, like, or I need to, I just don't feel like going out, right? That's it. I just don't feel like going out. If saying that truth is so scary to this introvert, then it's going to be much safer, much more socially acceptable to have a migraine. Your friends aren't going to implore you to go out if you have a migraine. Your friends may not beg you to join them at the party if you're not feeling well. But that's like, that's a lot of like pain to endure with a migraine. That's a lot of physical discomfort to go through when you just weren't able to say, you know what, I don't feel like going out. I feel like staying here. But stranger things have happened. Sometimes that speaking of the truth can be so scary that it's easier to hide behind physical symptoms. It's safer. You can stay safe with this stuff, even though you're enduring all this like physical woe. It can be safer than something else. What's another example? So let's say like in-laws are coming to town, right? You've got in-laws coming to town. You don't get along with the in-laws. They've got all sorts of shit planned. Like I live here in New York, they've got to go to the Empire State Building. They're going to go to like, the memorials of like 9/11. They got all this shit planned. And you just like, you don't like hanging out with them. It's not your jam. It can be a lot more socially acceptable to have diarrhea or for your stomach to hurt than it is just to say, you know what, I don't really like you guys. The thought of spending all day with you in the hot subways and, waiting in lines and going to these touristy places sounds awful. So instead, I better just stay home and rest. So, sometimes this stuff is like insidious. It's insidious, and that spirit, it may be communicating with you. It may have been wanting you to learn to speak your truth. Your spirit or the creator or whatever may have been guiding you or giving you opportunities or imploring you in some way to start speaking your truth. But instead, you were unable to. You haven't listened. It's scary. It's difficult. So now you've manifested these symptoms. And now you're listening to this podcast. And this podcast, maybe the lesson here is that maybe you speak your truth a little bit more. You free yourself from the burden of some of these symptoms. The beauty for me of this kind of approach is that it puts us into a state of total accountability. And this was something certainly that I know I struggled with for a long time when I was sick, because it just felt like it happened, right? I think I picked up a parasite and, my diagnosis experience was totally fucked. And, it was just like really intense. I just felt like it was something that happened. It was 19 at the time. And it was just like, it was wicked. It was, the whole thing was crazy. And so I didn't know, it just didn't occur to me that I had to like take accountability for it. I was living my life and it just sort of felt like shit happened. And, I was kind of caught up in it. But as the symptoms weren't going away, I had to spend some more time figuring it out. Maybe it was too much time trying to figure things out and not enough time just sort of living and experiencing. But coming from this place of total accountability and just sort of like, taking that ownership, for me to take that ownership and just assume that this was here because I needed it to be here. And at the moment that I no longer needed it to be here, the moment that I didn't need that lesson or that reminder anymore, it was going to change. But that as long as my symptoms were there, there was an opportunity here. I was being forged. I was being transformed. I was dealing with the resistance that was going to make me different, that was going to give me the experience that I need to for my karma to be expressed or for me to have the impact on the people around me. And I remember when I was sick, somebody would be like, well, everything happens for a reason. And I'd just be like, fuck you. Like, fuck, I don't want to fucking hear that. Just someone make me stop bleeding out of my ass, please. Help me not be mortified that I might not find a bathroom in time. Can I please just have a beer or go out with my friends and just chill out? Instead of coming up with all the excuses not to meet someone for dinner because I was afraid I was going to shit myself as soon as I ate something. Oh, it must be happening for a reason. It's going to make you stronger or whatever. I used to hate that shit. But I do think that there's an opportunity to ask yourself, well, what am I getting from this? How is this serving me? If this were working to my benefit, how might this be serving me? Maybe your thyroid condition is drawing your attention to the 5th chakra. Maybe it's asking you to take a look at, are you speaking your truth? Or maybe it's asking you to take a look at how you judge yourself or how you judge others. And that's like the beauty of taking this kind of holistic approach to your illness, where there's so many different maps of the body. We've got the chakras, we've got the Chinese meridian system, you've got like reflexology. There's so many different overlays or lenses that you can use to analyze the body, that when you have an illness, when there are symptoms, those symptoms can be a phenomenal springboard into deeper levels of your consciousness. It can be the thing that helps you it shows you where to dive into your body to begin to unravel or understand this kind of communication that needs to happen between you and your consciousness and the universe and whatever. So I also think that why you might manifest knee pain instead of low back pain there's a potential for that to be significance. It can be a significant thing that you have knee pain instead of back pain. Or why do you get jaw pain instead of wrist pain? Why do you hold your tension in your belly instead of your feet? So you can start with your symptoms and, take it to one of the maps. Go and Carolyn Mace has a great book called Anatomy of the Spirit. You can start there, dive in, start taking a look at what are the chakras, what do the energy centers mean here? What might be some of the energies that are flowing through here? You can take a look at the Chinese meridian system. What meridians are flowing through here? It's like if I have a dream that I got bit by a snake or a bug or something or a bee, I'll look up, or I know it now, but I used to look up and be like, okay, what is the point here? What's the acupuncture point? What's the meridian that flows through here? Just about every part of the body's been mapped out. It's got some kind of significance that people have been meditating on and planning or mapping or communicating about. It's all just information, little pieces of data to throw into the pot, take a look at it, see if something resonates with you, do the experiment, play with some of the ideas, work with that energy a little bit, and just see what happens. At the very least, you'll learn a little something. And the potential upside, the thing that you might learn might be exactly what it is that you needed to learn, so that now you no longer need the symptoms to keep reminding you. And you can just let it go. And just like that, these things can shift. Your experience to yourself, your experience to your body, your experience to your symptoms can all change. And it may be precisely because you took up an inquiry into the self. And you used your symptoms. You approached your symptoms with gratitude, saying, thank you for being my teacher. What is it that you're showing me? What is it that I'm here to learn? I remember when I was bleeding so much that Chinese medicine, they have this saying that says memories are stored in the blood. So I was like, I played with that for a while. I was like, well, what does that mean? Are there memories that I'm trying to purge that I need to heal or process or transform? I didn't notice any huge breakthrough from that, but it was an experiment that I undertook. And I was like, okay, well, let me try that out. And then I looked at, okay, well, is this, keeping me from speaking my truth? Is this, things that I need to be saying or be more clear with my friends or my family or something like that, and take a look at that and be like, okay, well, let me try that experiment for a while. Let's see what's going on here. So, there's lots of different things like headaches. Like in Chinese medicine, we make a distinction between a headache that's in the front of the head versus the side of the head versus the top of the head versus the back of the head. Each one of those is going to have a different significance. So if you've been dealing with headaches, you can take a look at, what might the headache be teaching me? And then maybe you find an acupuncturist. So you can write into the show, send me whatever you're dealing with and we'll talk about it. I'll answer some questions. I'll record another podcast here, where we talk about what some of these symptoms are and what the significance might mean, or what some of the questions that often arise in that area. Like the low back pain oftentimes is related to money issues. It's the foundation of the spine. So when your emotional and spiritual foundation is insecure or is being rocked or there's fear there, a lot of times that can manifest as low back pain. It's just something to think about. I'm not going to say that that's absolutely what's going on for you, but it's something to think about. I know for me, when I had sciatica, it was when I realized that unconsciously, I didn't even sort of fully consciously realize that my marriage was in trouble. She had been traveling a lot. She needed to spend a lot more time in New York to pursue her career. And I was afraid. But I didn't have that kind of emotional acuity then to be able to verbalize, I'm afraid, I'm scared. Instead, a disc herniated. Fucking pain into my big toe. It's crazy. But there were also other things that happened, right? I'd been to a chiropractor who gave me this like super aggressive manipulation. I've been doing these wood chops in the gym, which is like a workout that puts a lot of stress on the low back. But the wood chops I've been doing for a year, never had a problem. The chiropractor happened the day or two before. Was it the adjustment? It's possible. I suspect that all these things are kind of multifactorial, where the adjustment mixed with my fear, mixed with the workout, and it all came together, and I was laid up for 5 days. I couldn't get off the floor. I would make it to the bathroom and then that was it. And then I finally, we opened up the massage table and I slept what little sleep I could get. I slept there. I was just in pain. It's just trying to process. And that was this sort of massive somatization, this body manifesting these symptoms as a response to the emotional turmoil. Sometimes when the emotions are just too much for us to process, or we don't have, like I said, that kind of acuity or that dexterity, that vocabulary even sometimes, well, then it can just manifest physically, gives it expression. And ultimately, right, that's an opportunity for us to circle back into it and say, okay, well, what's the lesson here? What is this teaching me? What is this experience? What is it keeping me from? All right, maybe that's a question to ask. What are my symptoms keeping me from? And then where do you go with that? You just keep following it. Follow the trail. But I do believe that when we no longer need that experience, it leaves. The symptoms shift. Your relationship to yourself changes. So you come from this place of accountability of assuming that, just try out the experiment, right? Say, well, maybe it's teaching me something. Maybe there's something to be gained from this. How do I dive into myself here? What is the lesson that might be here? There's lots of resources online. There's lots of maps. People have all sorts of ideas about that shit. And listen, I don't like to say that one thing is definitely, another, because it might be different. Trust where the universe is leading you on your quest. When you ask that question and you're not sure and you find, you get led to a web page or a podcast or, you feel called to reach out to me, take it for what it is. The universe is showing you that this is one option to proceed down. This is one road of inquiry to go through, and you'll see where it leads you. And so trust that process. You can trust that experience. And at the very least, your symptoms may be guiding you to just paying greater attention. And it may seem kind of fucked up because if you're really sick or you're fatigued, you're battling with like chronic Lyme disease or something, it's hard to pay attention. But it might be that very thing where in this process of saying, well, what is this teaching me? What am I learning from this? What is the opportunity here to show up more alert in my life? And you'll see where it takes you. I know that this is like it's kind of an intense conversation, right? It's kind of a heavy thing because I never like to think that, I may have been impeding my own healing process, but it's not really me. It's like we're always in relationship to our environment, to this universal flow of things. And that's what's going to be doing the healing. So the question that I always would sort of ask myself is like, okay, well, what can I do to put myself in a better position to receive the healing, to get back into the flow of the universe, to realign myself with the Tao, and fostering greater awareness, letting go of some of the resentment of the diagnosis, of the symptoms, starting to see how things might be actually tilted in my favor, how the universe may not be setting me up for failure, may not be setting me up for heartache, may not be setting me up because I'm a horrible person, but as an opportunity to have more experiences on this planet, as an opportunity to trigger a transformation that might lead to greater kindness, greater service, greater community, or maybe it's just repaying some kind of karma. Who knows? Who knows? But if you can begin an inquiry that has you taking total accountability, shifting from blame and victimhood into just owning it, saying, yeah, okay, this is here. And let's assume, for the sake of the exercise, that it's for your benefit, that somehow this is going to serve you and the people that you come in contact with. You may not know how. It may take a shit ton of courage to give it that kind of expression, but it's possible. Total accountability. Assume that it's working in your favor. And that when you no longer need the lesson of that, those symptoms go away. So when you can integrate the lesson or tune your awareness to the spiritual level, when you can attune your awareness to realigning yourself with the environment, to hear things a little bit more clearly, to hear things not so much from a place of resentment and frustration and entitlement, but to realign yourself with the natural state of the universe. That's where the chi flows. That's where the energy flows. And in Chinese medicine, that's everything. That's health. It's when your chi flows freely. So try out the experiment. Let me know how it goes for you. I'd love to hear what's going on. I'm happy to give you, my kind of clinical insights or spiritual insights or like whatever the fuck, these thoughts that I have about some of the symptoms and things. I don't want to just like rattle off a list of stuff, but hit me up with what's going on. Give me your story. I'll read some of them and we'll take it from there. We'll have the conversations and we'll keep it flowing. Help process and transform, your current state of things so that you can find yourself back in a position where you're in harmony with yourself and with the universe. And being grateful for everything that has happened along the way is also going to help you have more energy. It's going to contribute more positive vibes toward a healing. And to recognize also that, your healing and your health has a way more to do with your soul, with your spirit, with your energy field than it does with the presence or absence of symptoms. So you and your connection to your universe, to your environment, is way more important than the presence or absence of symptoms. But it's easy to get caught up in chasing the symptoms. We want the symptoms to go away. You want to feel better, right? We want that comfort for sure. I don't judge it. I live it. I understand it, But to also recognize that if you are able to take a breath, if you're listening to this, there is so much that is going right with you. There's so much opportunity to interact with your environment, to enjoy that respiration, to enjoy that inhale. You have another moment on this planet to interact with the mystery, to interact with the divine, to interact with your community, to interact with your friends, interact with your pets, just to be, even if it's just to experience your soul in this physical form. Even if you're grappling with the limitations of the physical and the frustrations of how sometimes healing can take a little bit longer in the physical form. Even that is a gift. So let me know how it goes. Let's all open our hearts to hold the space of gratitude. If you are listening to this and you have been suffering, I open my heart. Stay strong. Keep going. Keep going.